The box arrived on a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day that made the extraordinary feel obscene. It was waiting on the porch when Mara came home from work, a small cardboard package soaked at the corners from melting snow. No return address. Just her name written in her father's slanted handwriting, Mara Lynn Holloway, the letters pressed too hard, like the pen had been angry or afraid. Her stomach tightened before she even touched it. Her father had been dead for 3 years. She stood there longer than she meant to, keys dangling from her fingers, the wind crawling under her coat. Her mind raced for rational explanations. Old mail. A prank. Someone who'd found an old notebook. But the handwriting was unmistakable. She'd seen it on birthday cards, on permission slips, on the note he'd left on the kitchen table the morning he died. Gone to the lake. Back before dark. He never came back. Inside, the house felt too quiet. Her son, Eli, was in his room upstairs. She could hear the faint hum of his tablet through the ceiling. The normalcy of it all made her skin prickle. Mara set the box on the dining table and stared at it like it might breathe. She opened it. Inside was a cassette tape, black plastic, no label, just a strip of masking tape with one word written in that same hard, familiar hand. Confession. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it out. Beneath the tape lay a folded sheet of paper, yellowed and thin. She unfolded it slowly. Mara. If you're hearing this, it means I failed. Do not let him hear it. Her breath caught. Him. A cold memory surfaced, her father waking from nightmares, soaked in sweat, whispering prayers he never taught her. The way he'd locked the basement door and boarded over it after her mother died. The way he used to stare at Eli as a baby with a look that wasn't love or fear, but recognition. Mara swallowed hard and carried the tape to the living room. The old cassette player sat on a shelf, dusty and forgotten. She hadn't used it in years. When she pressed the tape inside, the plastic clicked too loudly in the silence. She hesitated, glancing toward the stairs. Mom. Eli called. Can I have a snack? In a minute, she replied, her voice thinner than she wanted. She pressed play. Static hissed, then her father's voice emerged, older, rougher than she remembered, like it had been dragged through gravel. If you're listening to this, Mara. I'm already dead. Her chest tightened. I need you to understand something. I didn't mean to do it. Not the first time. Not the second. And God help me, not the last. Mara's hands flew to her mouth. There is something that lives in our blood, he continued. I tried to starve it. I tried to drown it. But it doesn't die. It waits. A soft thump came from upstairs. Eli's door opening. Mara turned the volume down instinctively. I killed them, the tape whispered. Not because I wanted to, but because it wanted me to. Her heart slammed against her ribs. It comes when you're weakest. When you're grieving. When you're afraid. It tells you you're doing the right thing. That you're saving them. That the pain will stop. Footsteps on the stairs. Mara, if you hear this, then it has found its way to him. The footsteps paused halfway down. Her father's voice broke, cracking in a way she'd never heard before. You have to stop it. Even if that means stopping him. The tape clicked and whined as it reached the end, the sound stretching on and on like a scream that never finished. Mama. Mara jumped so hard the player nearly fell from her hands. Eli stood at the bottom of the stairs, small and pale in the dim light. He tilted his head, watching her with unsettling calm. What were you listening to? He asked. She forced a smile, her pulse roaring in her ears. Just, an old tape. Go get your snack. He didn't move right away. His eyes flicked to the cassette player, then back to her face. I had a bad thought today, Eli said quietly. Mara's breath stopped. What kind of thought, sweetheart? He smiled then, not wide, not playful. Just enough. The kind Grandpa used to have. Mara didn't sleep that night. She lay rigid beneath the covers, eyes fixed on the faint glow of the hallway light seeping under her bedroom door. Every sound felt amplified, the tick of the wall clock, the groan of pipes, the soft rhythmic breathing coming from Eli's room across the hall. The kind Grandpa used to have. The words replayed endlessly, like the hiss of the cassette rewinding inside her skull. At some point after midnight, she rose and went to the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of water but didn't drink it. Her reflection in the dark window looked hollow, older than she remembered being. Her father's eyes stared back at her. She thought of the tape sitting hidden inside the bread box, wrapped in a dish towel like something toxic. She hadn't told herself she was hiding it from Eli. She told herself she was hiding it from the house. From whatever might be listening. At 2:17 a.m., she heard Eli laugh. It was soft, almost playful, but it sent a shock through her spine. She stood frozen, listening. The laugh faded into a whisper she couldn't quite hear, like someone speaking through a wall. Mara moved down the hall on bare feet, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. She pushed open Eli's door. He sat upright in bed, eyes open, staring into the dark corner of his room. "Eli," she whispered. He didn't respond. Moonlight spilled across his face, and she noticed something that made her heart stutter, his lips were moving. "Don't like it when you ignore me," he murmured. Mara's throat closed. "Who are you talking to?" Slowly, Eli turned his head toward her. His eyes focused, the strange stillness melting away. "You," he said, confused. "I was asleep." Relief crashed over her so hard her knees weakened. She sat on the edge of his bed and brushed his hair back, forcing herself to breathe. "It was just a dream," she said, though she wasn't sure who she was convincing. Eli nodded, already drifting back under. Within minutes, he was snoring softly. But the corner of the room felt wrong. Too dark. Too deep. Mara didn't look at it again. The next morning, she called in sick to work and dug through boxes in the garage she hadn't touched since her father's funeral. Dust coated her hands and clothes as she searched for anything, that might explain the words on that tape. She found newspaper clippings first. Old ones. Local crimes. Missing persons. Most circled in red pen. Some with dates written in the margins. The earliest was from 32 years ago. All unsolved. Her father's handwriting appeared again and again, growing more frantic over time. On one clipping, a single sentence was written so hard the paper had nearly torn. "I felt relief when it was over." Mara dropped it like it burned. She sank onto the concrete floor, the cold seeping through her jeans. Her memories of her father fractured, bedtime stories, gentle hands, long fishing trips, now interwoven with the image of a man standing over blood, convincing himself it was mercy. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eli's school. "Concerned about Eli's behavior today. Please call." Her heart began to race. She arrived at the school 20 minutes later, palms slick with sweat. The counselor, a thin woman with tired eyes, folded her hands carefully. "Eli was drawing," she said. "Drawing what?" Mara asked. The counselor slid a paper across the desk. It showed a stick-figure man lying on the ground. Dark red crayon covered his chest. Standing over him was a larger figure, smiling. Behind them loomed a tall black shape with no face, its arms wrapped around both figures like a shadowy parent. At the bottom, written in careful block letters. "He made me do it." Mara's ears rang. When we asked Eli about it, the counselor continued gently, he said it was a family picture. Mara drove home in silence, Eli humming softly in the back seat. At a red light, she glanced at him in the mirror. "Eli," she said, keeping her Voice steady, do you remember your grandpa? He nodded. He talks to me sometimes. The light turned green, but Mara didn't move. What do you mean? She asked. Eli's eyes met hers in the mirror. His expression was too old. Too knowing. He says you won't understand, Eli said. Just like Grandma didn't. A chill spread through her veins. How does Grandpa talk to you? She whispered. Eli smiled faintly. In my head, he said. But sometimes, something else uses his voice. Mara's hands tightened on the steering wheel until her knuckles ached. That night, after Eli was asleep, she took the tape back out. This time, she pressed rewind. The hiss sounded almost like breathing. And from somewhere deep in the house, behind the walls, beneath the floor, something listened. The tape played differently the second time. Mara noticed it immediately. The static at the beginning lingered longer, swelling and dipping like a breath drawn through broken teeth. Her father's voice came in slower now, stretched, as if the words had weight and resisted being spoken. I should have burned this, he said. But it doesn't like fire. Mara sat on the living room floor, knees pulled to her chest, the cassette player between her hands. Every light in the house was on. Still, the shadows felt thick, pressed close. I thought it was guilt, her father continued. I thought it was madness. That's what the doctors said when I went to them. They told me grief can make men imagine things. A humorless chuckle followed. But guilt doesn't whisper names you've never heard. It doesn't show you places you've never been. Mara squeezed her eyes shut. She remembered her father driving for hours without explanation, returning with blood on his boots and a hollow calm she had never questioned. She'd been too young. Too trusting. It comes from something old, the tape said. Older than belief. Older than the words we use to excuse it. A loud thud came from upstairs. Mara bolted to her feet, heart hammering. Eli, she called. No answer. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking like a warning. Eli's door stood open. He was asleep, or looked asleep, blanket kicked to the floor, chest rising and falling. Then she saw the wall. Crayon markings covered it. Spirals. Jagged lines. Shapes that hurt her eyes to follow. In the center was a tall figure drawn in black, its head scraping the ceiling, its arms stretching outward to touch smaller figures clustered below. One of those figures had her hair. One had Eli's. And one was labeled, in shaky handwriting. Dad. Mara backed out of the room, her pulse roaring. She shut the door without making a sound and returned downstairs, her legs trembling. The tape continued. It doesn't possess you, her father said. That would be easier. Cleaner. It just leans in and tells you what you already fear might be true. Mara pressed her palm to her mouth, stifling a sob. It told me the world was cruel. That some people were broken beyond repair. That I was chosen to end their suffering. The voice lowered, almost reverent. And every time I listened, it felt like love. Something creaked behind her. Mara turned sharply. The hallway stood empty, but the air felt disturbed, like someone had just passed through it. She became aware of a low sound beneath the tape, so faint she thought she imagined it at first. A whisper. Not words. Just breath. I tried to stop, the tape said. I tried to end it the night I went to the lake. I thought if I drowned myself, it would drown too. Mara's chest tightened painfully. But it doesn't live where we live, her father whispered. It lives where blood remembers. The whispering grew louder. Mara slapped the stop button, gasping. The room fell silent, but the silence was wrong. Heavy. Expectant. Then she heard it. A soft dragging sound. Coming from the basement. Her father had sealed the basement door the year before he died. Boarded it shut. Padlocked it. Told her never to open it, no matter what she heard. Mara grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, her hands slick with sweat. She stood at the top of the basement steps, staring at the door. The padlock lay broken on the floor. The door stood ajar. Cold air seeped up from below, carrying a damp, coppery smell that made her stomach churn. "Mara," a voice called softly. Her father's voice. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "This isn't real," she whispered. "Mara," the voice said again. "I need your help." She took one step closer. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the stairs. Something dark streaked the walls, not mold. Not rust. Handprints. Small ones. Leading upward. "Mama?" Eli's voice came from behind her. Mara spun around. He stood at the end of the hallway, rubbing his eyes, pajama sleeves pushed up his arms. "You shouldn't be here," she said sharply. Eli frowned. "He said you'd be scared." "Who did?" Eli glanced past her, toward the basement door. His expression softened, almost affectionate. "Grandpa," he said. "But he's not the one talking right now." The basement whisper swelled, forming words that crawled under her skin. "You opened the door." The lights flickered. Eli smiled wider than she had ever seen him smile before. "It says you're ready now," he told her. "Just like Dad was." Mara stepped between Eli and the stairs, every instinct screaming. "No," she said. "He's lying." The whisper laughed. And from the dark below, something began to climb. Mara slammed the basement door shut with her full weight, the impact shuddering through the frame. The whisper cut off instantly, like a throat crushed mid-breath. The light steadied. Silence fell so fast it rang in her ears. She locked the door, slid the deadbolt, then dragged the old bookshelf across it until her arms shook. Only then did she turn to Eli. He stood exactly where she'd left him, head tilted, eyes following her movements with quiet interest. "You heard it," he said calmly. Mara crouched in front of him, gripping his shoulders. His skin felt cold. Too cold. "Listen to me," she said, forcing her voice steady. "Whatever you're hearing, whatever you think you're talking to, it's not Grandpa. It's not real." Eli frowned, as if she'd disappointed him. "It's realer than you." The words landed like a slap. Mara recoiled slightly, then caught herself. "You're tired," she said. "You had a bad dream." "No," Eli replied. "You did." He stepped around her and went back to his room without another word. Mara stayed on the floor for a long time, staring at the barricaded basement door. She half expected it to pulse. To breathe. To speak again. It didn't. That night, she dreamed of blood soaking into dry earth, of hands pressing down on her shoulders, not forcing, just guiding. A voice murmured reassurance in her ear, promising relief. When she woke, her sheets were twisted tight around her legs. And Eli was standing beside her bed. "I don't like when it shows you things," he said softly. Mara screamed. The next day, she took Eli to her sister's house. She didn't explain. She couldn't. How did you tell someone that your child might be carrying the same darkness that destroyed your father? That something ancient had followed your family like a curse written into flesh. Her sister hugged her, concerned, but didn't press. Eli went willingly, smiling as if he knew he'd be back soon. As Mara drove away alone, her phone buzzed. A voicemail. Notification. Unknown number. She pulled over and listened. Her father's voice filled the car. "Mara. It learns faster when it's young." She dropped the phone. Hands shaking, she replayed the message. It was the same voice as the tape, but clearer. Stronger. As if whatever wore it no longer needed to pretend to be weak. She deleted the message. Then another came. You can't outrun blood. She screamed and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. By the time she got home, dusk had settled heavy over the house. The basement door remained sealed, unmoving. She didn't trust it. She went to the garage instead. Her father's old workbench still sat in the corner, untouched. She opened the drawers one by one. Tools. Nails. Rope. A notebook lay hidden beneath a false bottom. Inside were drawings, not Eli's. Her father's. The same tall, faceless shape. The same outstretched arms. Pages and pages of it, drawn thinner over time, like it had been losing patience. On the final page, a sentence was written in thick, dark ink. It does not leave. It moves on. Mara closed the notebook, breathing hard. Her gaze fell on a metal gas can nearby. The house suddenly felt wrong. Too quiet. The air pressure shifted, making her ears pop. From somewhere inside the walls, a familiar whisper returned, soft, coaxing. You understand now. No, she said aloud. I don't accept you. The whisper laughed. Your father tried to kill me, it said. All he did was give me a better home. Mara backed away, heart racing. You have a choice, the voice continued. You can break the cycle, or let it finish. Images flooded her mind, Eli older, taller, smiling with that same calm detachment. Blood on his hands. Relief in his eyes. Her knees buckled. What do you want? She whispered. The answer came immediately. Confession, it said. Honesty. Acceptance. She understood then. It didn't want Eli. It wanted her. The lights flickered violently. A crack split the basement doorframe, oozing darkness like ink. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her sister. Eli says he wants to come home. He's crying. He says you promised. Mara stared at the screen, tears streaming down her face. She picked up the gas can. If blood remembered, maybe fire could teach it to forget. From the basement, the whisper turned sharp. Careful, it warned. I already know what you're capable of. Mara swallowed her fear and whispered back, so did my father. And for the first time, the house went completely silent. Mara sat on the garage floor long after the silence fell, the gas can resting between her knees like a judgment. The quiet wasn't peace, it was restraint. She could feel it coiled beneath the house, waiting for her to blink, to doubt, to hesitate. That was how it worked. Her father had said so. It leaned in. It waited. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from her sister. Please come get him. He's scaring me. Mara's throat closed. She stood, legs numb, and walked back into the house. The lights flickered as she passed, reacting to her like nerves under skin. She ignored them and went straight to the living room, where the cassette player still sat. She pressed play. Her father's voice returned instantly, as if it had been waiting right behind the silence. If you're hearing this part, he said, then it's already testing you. Mara sank onto the couch. It will try to convince you there's another way. That love can fix it. That you can outthink it. I believe that too. The tape hissed, then continued. You can't starve it. You can't lock it away. The only thing it fears, is refusal. Mara frowned. Refusal to what? She whispered. Refusal to carry it. The house creaked, a deep, unhappy sound. It doesn't need violence, her father said. It needs permission. The tape ended abruptly, cutting him off mid-breath. Mara sat very still. Permission. She thought of every small moment she'd dismissed, the strange calm in her father after his episodes, the way he'd framed his actions as necessary, merciful. The way Eli spoke now, echoing that same language. She stood suddenly. The basement door shuddered. A voice slipped through the cracks, smoother now, closer. You don't have to do this alone. No, Mara said aloud. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. I do. She grabbed her coat and keys and left the house without looking back. Her sister's house glowed warm and normal in the darkness. Children's shoes lined the entryway. A life untouched by whatever haunted Mara's blood. Eli sat at the kitchen table, swinging his legs, his hands folded neatly in front of him. He looked up and smiled. You came, he said. Mara crouched in front of him. She searched his face for her son, for the boy who used to cry over skinned knees and sleep with the light on. I'm taking you home, she said. His smile faded. It doesn't want that. I don't care what it wants. Eli's eyes darkened, not black, not glowing. Just empty. Focused inward. It says you're being selfish, he replied. Mara felt something twist inside her, sharp and hot. It doesn't get to talk about selfishness. Her sister hovered in the doorway, pale. Mara, what's going on? Mara stood, keeping herself between Eli and the door. You need to call the police, she said quietly. If anything happens tonight, anything, you tell them I took him. Do you understand? Fear filled her sister's eyes. She nodded. As Mara ushered Eli outside, he leaned close and whispered, It's proud of you. She flinched but didn't stop. The drive home was silent. Halfway there, Eli spoke again. Did Grandpa tell you about the first one? Mara's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Stop. He cried afterward, Eli continued calmly. But it felt warm. Like being hugged. Stop, she said louder. It says you'll feel that too. Mara slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a halt on the empty road. She turned to face him, breathing hard. Listen to me, she said. You are not broken. You are not chosen. Whatever you hear, it's lying to you. Eli studied her. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Confusion. Fear. Then it was gone. You're lying to yourself, he said gently. Mara started to cry. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the notebook she'd taken from the garage. She opened it and held it up. This is what it does, she said. This is how it ends. Alone. Hated. Empty. Eli looked at the pages. His lips trembled. I don't want to hurt anyone, he whispered. Hope surged through her chest, fierce and painful. I know, she said softly. That's why we're going to say no. Together. The car radio crackled to life on its own. A voice, not her father's now, not pretending. You don't get to decide that. The road lights burst one by one, plunging them into darkness. Eli screamed, clutching his head. Mara wrapped her arms around him, holding tight as the car shook, as something pressed against the windows from the inside. No, she whispered again and again. You don't get him. You don't get me. The pressure intensified, then stopped. Silence rushed back in, heavy and stunned. Eli sagged against her, sobbing. Mara held him and shook, knowing this wasn't over. Because refusal had a price. And whatever lived in her blood had just learned how far she was willing to go. They didn't go home. Mara drove until the road narrowed into a two-lane stretch bordered by trees that leaned inward like eavesdroppers. She didn't know where she was going, only where she wasn't. The house no longer felt like shelter. It felt like an open mouth. Eli slept in the passenger seat, exhausted from crying. His small body twitched now and then, as if something inside him hadn't fully let go. Mara watched him between glances at the road, terrified that if she blinked too long, she'd miss the moment he slipped away again. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. The screen lit up on the dashboard, unknown. Her father's voice filled the car without her answering. "Mara. You're making it angry." Her hands went numb on the steering wheel. "You're not him," she whispered. A pause. Then a softer tone, calculated. "I know you want to protect him. That's why you'll fail." The trees blurred past faster. The road seemed longer than it should have been. "It doesn't break you by force," the voice continued. "It breaks you by love." The call ended. Mara screamed and hurled the phone into the back seat. It hit the floor and went silent. Eli stirred. "Mom." "I'm here," she said immediately. "I'm not going anywhere." His eyes fluttered open. He looked small again. Young. "It's cold," he murmured. She turned the heat up, even though sweat dampened her collar. "Try to sleep." He nodded, trusting her. That trust burned. They stopped at a roadside motel just before dawn. The neon sign flickered like a dying pulse. Mara paid cash. She didn't give her real name. Inside the room, the air smelled of bleach and old carpet. The walls were thin. The kind of place where people passed through and left parts of themselves behind. Mara locked the door. Then she locked it again. Eli sat on the bed, hugging a pillow. "It's quiet," he said. "Yes," Mara replied too quickly. "Too quiet." She checked the bathroom. The closet. Under the beds. When she returned, Eli was staring at the mirror across the room. "What are you looking at?" she asked. He shook his head. "Nothing." But his reflection didn't move right away. Mara turned sharply. The mirror showed Eli sitting on the bed. It showed her standing beside him. And behind them, just for a fraction of a second, it showed a third shape, tall and narrow, its outline warping the glass like heat. Mara grabbed the towel and threw it over the mirror. Her heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. "It followed us," Eli whispered. "No," she said, kneeling in front of him. "It didn't. It can't." "How do you know?" Because her father had said it didn't live where they lived. Because she needed that to be true. Eli slept again, eventually. Mara didn't. She sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the tape in her head. Refusal. Permission. Inheritance. The thing hadn't stopped because she fought it. It had stopped because she interrupted something. A transfer. Her father hadn't drowned himself to escape guilt. He'd done it to end the line. And he'd failed. Mara pressed her hands together until they shook. "What do you want from me?" she whispered to the empty room. The lights flickered once. Then the voice came, not from the walls, not from the phone. From inside her. "You already know." Her vision blurred. Memories surged forward unbidden, anger she'd buried, moments she'd wanted to hurt someone just to make the noise stop. Thoughts she'd dismissed as stress. As grief. As weakness. "I was always there," it said gently. "You just never listened." Mara clutched her head, gasping. "You don't get to use me. I don't have to." Images flooded her mind, Eli older, standing where she stood now. Making the same choice. Feeling the same pressure. "But he will," the voice whispered. "Unless you finish what your father started." Mara understood then. It didn't want her son dead. It wanted her broken. A choice soaked in guilt either way. She stood slowly and walked into the bathroom. She stared at her reflection, searching for the thing behind her eyes. "I refuse," she said to the mirror. The word felt thin. The voice laughed softly. Say it again. I refuse, she said louder. Pain flared behind her eyes. Her knees buckled. She gripped the sink, teeth clenched. Refusal isn't words, it said. It's sacrifice. She looked back at the door to the room, at Eli sleeping beyond it. What kind, she whispered. The answer came like a caress. The kind a mother never survives. Mara slid down against the bathroom wall, shaking, tears streaming. Outside, the sun began to rise. And somewhere deep inside her blood, something patient smiled. Mara woke to the sound of Eli screaming. Not the sharp cry of a nightmare, this was raw, tearing, the sound of something being pulled apart from the inside. She was on her feet before she realized she'd fallen asleep on the bathroom floor. Eli, she shouted, bursting into the room. He thrashed on the bed, eyes wide but unfocused, his small body arching as if something inside him were trying to claw its way out. The towel slipped from the mirror, revealing their reflections. The third shape stood there openly now. It had no face, no true body, just an outline that bent reality around it, like a wound in the air. Its arms stretched into Eli's chest, not tearing flesh, but threading through him. He's ready, it whispered. Mara didn't hesitate. She crossed the room and pulled Eli into her arms. The thing recoiled slightly, like it hadn't expected that. No, Mara said, voice shaking but unbroken. He's not. You can't hold him forever. I don't have to. Pain exploded behind her eyes as the voice turned inward, roaring now, no longer patient. You think you're stronger than your father? He begged me. He cried. He killed for me. Mara's jaw tightened. And I listened, the thing hissed. Every time. Eli whimpered against her chest. Mom, it hurts. I know, she whispered, rocking him. I know. Just listen to me. She closed her eyes. And she let it in. Not like her father had, not with obedience, not with justification, but with brutal clarity. She opened every locked room in her mind, every ugly thought, every violent impulse she'd ever denied. She didn't push them away. She owned them. The thing surged, ecstatic. Yes, it breathed. That's it. That's permission. No, Mara said quietly. This is confession. The word struck like a blow. She spoke again, louder now, forcing the truth out of her chest. I am capable of violence, she said. I am capable of hate. I am capable of destroying someone I love. The room shook. The thing screamed, not in pain, but in rage. I see you, Mara continued. And I refuse you. The pressure intensified, crushing her lungs, flooding her mind with images, blood, relief, the terrible calm her father had felt. She didn't look away. I refuse to pretend I'm innocent, she said. And I refuse to let you use that lie. The thing shrieked, its outline warping, unraveling. You can't kill me, it howled. I live in blood. You live in silence, Mara said. In denial. In secrets. She looked down at Eli, his face twisted in fear. And I won't give you those anymore. Something snapped. Not glass. Not bone. A connection. The room went still. The shadow collapsed inward, folding like burned paper, shrinking until it was nothing more than a stain on the mirror, then even that was gone. Eli gasped, coughing, then went limp. Mara screamed his name, shaking him. His eyes fluttered open. Mom, he whispered. She broke then, sobbing, laughing, clutching him so tightly it hurt. It's gone, she whispered. It's gone. But even as she said it, she felt the cost settle into her bones. They found her hours later. The motel clerk called it in after hearing a woman crying for too long. The police said Mara Holloway had suffered a psychotic break. That grief had finally caught up to her. They said Eli was lucky. They said his mother saved him. They weren't wrong. Mara never denied what she was capable of. She told doctors everything, the thoughts, the anger, the fear. She confessed again and again, refusing the comfort of excuses. The thing never came back. Not to Eli. Not to anyone. Because it had nowhere left to hide. Mara sits now in a white room with no mirrors, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She smiles when Eli visits. He's brighter. Lighter. Free. Sometimes, late at night, she feels it stir faintly in her blood. But it has no voice anymore. Only memory. And memory, when confessed, has no power. Mara chose to carry the darkness where it could do no harm. And that is the truest confession of all. The end.